let's take our first tweet of this show. It comes from Humble Kip. Last year they started 3-0, but you said pump the brakes. Anything look off to you in this game other than the early turnovers?
Tannehill's accuracy. I expected a better performance from Ryan Tannehill in the season opener, especially in this new offense. I always knew that these passing routes were very complicated. There's a lot of passing routes between the hash marks, and those kind of passes expose the receivers and tight ends and tailbacks to very difficult hits that, as you saw, could lead to fumbles with Mike Wallace, and you got to be accurate on those. You got to put the ball in positions for the receivers to catch the ball and get you run after the catch yards. And Ryan Tannehill's accuracy was very off. As you saw, he had a bad interception in the red zone. Some of these fumbles were not on him. Some of the the interceptions were on him. But he had a 79.9 passer rating. And as you will learn from me doing this show, an 85 passer rating is the baseline of what should be accepted for the season, per game, and if he's not at 85, he didn't have a good game.
Right, and those warts are sort of hidden by how well the team ran the ball.
Absolutely.
You know, another point, very reliant on Mike Wallace in this game. He had 10 targets. Guys like Brandon Gibson, Jarvis Landry also only had 1 target. Is that just one game? Is that an aberration, or do we need to look at Tannehill being able to spread the ball a little more?
He's got to be able to spread the ball more, but that's really his strengths. If you look at the first 2 years of his career, he always consistently spread the ball around. I think a lot of what predicated Mike Wallace being targeted so much is that they had Darrelle Revis shadowing him. They were putting Mike Wallace in motion. A lot of times they had him matched up on a linebacker. If you have Mike Wallace matched up on a linebacker, you should win that matchup. So a lot of times the motion sort of predicated where Mike Wallace was throwing the ball, but obviously Ryan Tannehill has to get more comfortable with spreading the ball around.
Which is odd, because I feel like last year we were saying, why doesn't he throw the ball
Absolutely.
more to Mike Wallace? And here we are. He's throwing the ball too much to Mike Wallace.
This is the bizarro world of the Miami Dolphins. You actually have a good offense.
All right, our next question comes from Josh Padfield. He says, I know it's early, but does Samson Satele get moved to guard once Mike Pouncey comes back?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But if Darren College and Shelley Smith weren't playing as well as they were, then I'd say, yeah, sure. But Mike Pouncey is a starting center. He should continue to be the starting center. If anything, maybe Mike Pouncey plays guard, but I really don't think that that's an interest to Mike. That interests Mike. Mike does have some sort of clout in the situation. Samson Satele played well. He played great, but let's not pretend like this guy wasn't a limited player and that he wasn't traded away from the Dolphins because he couldn't block Vince Wilfork. He had one good game. Let's not overreact. This week he's facing probably the NFL's best defensive line, so we'll see how he plays. Now, if he plays 2 games like he played game 1, who knows?
Maybe, if anything, does this mean that Pouncey's just on a little bit thinner ice for off-field issues?
No. Off-field issues haven't really made a factor in regards to Pouncey. What I think this Samson Satele's performance in game 1 does is it says to the Dolphins, we don't have to rush Pouncey back. Let's get him right and then unleash him on the NFL. I mean, realistically, and this is, knock on Samson Satele or Brandon Albert, Mike Pouncey's a Pro Bowler. And in fact, he's probably your best offensive lineman on the entire team, if not your best offensive player. He's gonna when he's ready and he's right, he'll play and he'll resume his starting center spot.
Sounds good. Well, coincidentally, that question focused on your player of the game for last week. Why do you think Satele's performance was special?
I will say this by couching my statement by saying, yes, Cameron Wake was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, major impact plays. Those are great. But Cameron Wake is Cameron Wake. He is a Pro Bowler. You should expect that play from him. Did you expect the worst player on your entire team, the worst starter that you have?
That's what you said. You said he was the 32nd best center in the NFL.
He might have been the 33rd best center in the NFL. Did you expect Samson Satele to dominate a Pro Bowl, possibly Hall of Fame caliber nose tackle? Nobody expected that. He was consistently moving Vince Wilfork out of his spots. He was turning Vince Wilfork. He played so well, the Patriots said, hey, Vince, you're ineffective against Samson. Why don't you go attack Shelley Smith? Okay, why don't you go attack Darren College? And when you do that, you're dominating the game. And Sam Sattelli gets a lot of credit for the 5.1 yards per rush that the Dolphins average against the Patriots.
Wow. We like to keep the fan interaction high on X's and Omar. We're all about playing games. So this week, we've decided to incorporate a true or false segment into the show using your questions about this year's team. So let's do them pretty quick, okay?
All right, absolutely.
All right. Our first question comes from George Wallace at Biggest Hobbit. True or false? Sunday's win. I don't know. You go Omar Kelly, Matt Lincoln TV. It seems to make sense. I don't know where Biggest Hobbit comes from. Sunday's win says more about the Dolphins than the Patriots. True or false?
I think that's going to be false. From this standpoint, the Dolphins are going to be who they are. They are a very physical team, or have gotten back to being a very physical team. Less finesse right now. I think the offense is better. This defense, once you have a lead, you can get after quarterbacks. I knew they were going to be a good team, a 9 to 10 win team now. But I think it says a lot about the Patriots. The Patriots are not the team that we thought they were. From an offensive standpoint, I said this last week, they have come back to the pack. Tom Brady doesn't have any weapons. They put Rob Gronkowski out on the field on one leg. I don't really see the offensive line as a question mark for New England. They might want to consider signing Richie Incognito. That's how desperate things have gotten. They need to do a lot of work. Now, will they? Absolutely, because Bill Belichick works miracles.
Right. And when you look at a game where the Dolphins' offensive line and defensive line played so well, that goes hand in hand. It means the Patriots' offensive line and defensive line did not play very well.
Absolutely.
And that's what we saw. Michael Clark wants to know, true or false, Buffalo is no longer a bad matchup for Miami?
Absolutely false. While I will say this, the Dolphins' offensive line is no longer a tremendous liability like they were the 2 times that the Dolphins played Buffalo last year. This unit is completely different. There isn't a single starter on the team that actually got their face pounded in by Buffalo last year. And then this unit also features 391 career NFL starts, which is a ridiculous amount of starts. Now, the question is, do you have favorable matchups? No. This is a game where Buffalo is going to feed their running backs, and your linebackers are going to have to play them well. Well, who's the linebackers? Right. This is a game where you're still going to have to get after the quarterback and hound them. And Buffalo has a pretty good offensive line. And obviously, Buffalo, if they have a lead, they're going to pin their ears back, and Mario Williams and Jerry Hughes are going to come after you, and the Dolphins are going to have to protect that. So this game Buffalo's strengths still play into the Dolphins' weaknesses, in my opinion.
And offensive weapons definitely better than the Patriots'
offensive
weapons.
I mean, Sammy Watkins isn't right from a health standpoint. He's got a rib issue. But they've still got a ton of weapons. They've got 3 good receivers. They've got a decent tight end. And clearly 2 backs in C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson that have been dynamic against the Dolphins in past years.
Even 3 backs. Bryce Brown was great last year for the Eagles. I don't know how.
Antonio Dixon is now. They ran for a 50-yard carry. So yeah, Buffalo's got a stable of offensive players. The problem that Buffalo Bills have always had is they don't have any depth. And once injuries start to take place on that unit, and I know they've got a cornerback, I can't remember his name now, who's got a growing issue. Once injuries start to decimate that team, considering nobody wants to play in Buffalo, it's kind of hard to get depth there.
We'll get more into that with our picks coming up in a little bit. Humberto Silva wonders, true or false, these Dolphins have a shot at winning the AFC East?
Absolutely, no question about it. I think if you manage to sweep one of your 2 rivals in terms of the Bills or the Jets and split your rest of your series with the Patriots or with or with one of the teams, either Buffalo or the New York Jets, you should have a chance. And I can't remember a year where the Dolphins didn't split the series with the Jets. Now they just got to take care of business against Buffalo.
True or false? So we have some more true or false questions. That guy at Fins Up asks, true or false, the more successful the Dolphins' O-line is this season, the less likely Pouncey will be with the Dolphins in 2016?
I think Pouncey's with the Dolphins in 2016 just from the standpoint that they have to probably to alleviate some of their cap issues that they're going to have in 2015, they've got to sign him to an extension as opposed to having him play out his 5th-year option, which I believe pays him upwards of $7 million. It's between $6 and $7 million, which is a lot for an offensive lineman. It's beneficial for them to sign a multi-year contract as opposed to pay him on that hefty 5th-year option. And the Dolphins need the cap relief. Pouncey's the easy way to get it.
But also, just because Pouncey wasn't in the game and the Dolphins played great on the offensive line doesn't mean they would play better with him in the offensive line.
That's the interesting thing that people are forgetting. Pouncey, your best offensive lineman, wasn't on the field.
Jason Gerber, 52, asks true or false, Mike Wallace is back to his Pittsburgh days. I'm guessing that he's now, what does he mean? I don't know what he means exactly, but.
In his Pittsburgh days, Mike Wallace was averaging 8 touchdowns per season and 17.1 yards per reception.
Okay.
While he was very effective, or not very, fairly effective against the Patriots, Mike Wallace isn't back to his Pittsburgh days. No. He's got to get a quarterback who's able to improvise with him, which is what he had with Big Ben. I don't see that happening. Is Mike Wallace going to be worth what you pay for him? If you look at all the aspects of the game that he contributes to, I say that he is. Next year he's on the book. Yeah, you're paying $50 million for him now, but next year you're only paying $8 million for him. At $3 million of it is a bonus that's due in March. Team will either decide whether they want to keep Mike Pouncey in March or they'll let him free. No matter what, I think Mike Pouncey is going to be, whether with the Dolphins or without the Dolphins, a very productive NFL receiver.
Well, 17 yards per catch is not going to happen, but
No.
I think 8 touchdowns is a goal that
could
could be achieved.
That's a good barometer for a successful season for Mike.
And Andrew Fazzolari wonders, true or false, Larry Coker and Joe Philbin are separated at birth?
That is a very interesting question. If you do have a look at them at side to side, they look very similar. What's interesting,
even the demeanor's the same.
Even the demeanor's the same. Their deadpan sense of humor is the same. I would say that they are in the same family. I don't know if they were switched at birth, but they might be related somehow, some way.
Awesome. So the Dolphins are heading up to Buffalo for this team's second AFC East game. And fortunately for everyone covering the game, this is a September game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dolphins kind of lucked out here that they're not having to go to Buffalo in December.
Buffalo is not my favorite place to go. I'm usually going there in December where it's snowing and you got to dig your car out. And then, you know, I've had some very bad car experiences in Buffalo. Unfortunately, it's going to be great weather. Hopefully people are a lot more pleasant in Buffalo, and it's not as gloomy as it usually is.
Yeah. Some bad news, though, for the fans. They placed Sentinel Ellerbe on injured reserve and signed former Bills and Colts linebacker Kelvin Shepherd. As you said, how will this impact the linebacker unit for Sunday's game?
You lose Ellerbe, which is significant from this standpoint. You paid a lot of money for him 2 years ago. I think that this is probably his last game that he played was against the Patriots for the Dolphins. He's on the books for $8.45 million next year, which is more than Cameron Wake is making, which means he's done.
Right.
The interesting thing about it is he was a serviceable linebacker, so you lose that. And the other issue is now you've got Cole Misi in a cast because of his left ankle sprain. That's going to sideline him probably about 2 weeks, unless he's practicing today. That's problematic because inside linebacker was your weakest spot. So now you lose your starting inside linebacker. Then that'll be your backup inside linebacker. Jason Trusnick is filling in for him. And Trusnick has started 20 NFL games. He's an adequate NFL starter. He's a captain on the team because of special teams. Now he's going to have the opportunity to prove that he is an NFL starter. You know what the NFL is about? It's about when you get the opportunity, do you rise to the occasion? And Jason Trusnick is going to have a 2-week audition to whether or not he wants to be a starting linebacker for the Dolphins, for the NFL. He's an 8-year veteran. He does an adequate job. Can he be better than adequate? That's a question the Dolphins have to answer, and that's the reason why Kelvin Shepherd is here.
All right, and don't think that Doug Marrone and that Bills staff has got a full week to figure out how they are going to take advantage of those issues that the Dolphins linebackers have.
Attack weaknesses. And if I'm looking at this Dolphins defense, I'm putting a target right around Jelani Jenkins, right around Jason Trusnick, and maybe even Kelvin Shepherd, because he hasn't been here long enough. He's going to practice 3 games before maybe he steps on the field as a linebacker. And Jason Trusnick is a valuable special teams contributor. He plays 90 snaps, so that means he's going to be tired in the fourth quarter. I'm attacking him.
Yeah, the one key there, though, as you said, good NFL coaches. We're still not sure about Doug Marrone.
Not sure about Joe Philbin either. So.
If you were Kevin Coyle, what would your starting linebacker unit look like? Especially, you know, we don't know if Chris McCain is healthy or still sick or injured or whatever it is that kept him out of practice yesterday.
He's got a hip injury. He wasn't at practice on Tuesday. We'll see where he is on a Wednesday. As I said to you last week, I think the kid is tremendously talented. I would not have invested in him against the Patriots. I was wrong considering he blocked the punt, got a sack, got a number of pressures outside of that in the few snaps that he played. but I would continue to invest in him as a starter just because I think that Chris McCain and Deion Jordan are the future at outside linebacker for the Dolphins, and they need to move towards the future.
Each week we give you give us the biggest matchup of the game, and I'm curious who has the toughest challenge this week against Buffalo.
I would have to think that it's going to be the gentleman, Ja'Wuan James, who faces up against Mario Williams, who is a Pro Bowl caliber defensive end. He attacks from the right side of the offensive line. Ja'Wuan James is going to have a lot of isolation blocks on Ja'Wuan James, and he's probably going to need a lot of tight end help. So look for Deion Sims to play a significant role, significant snaps, helping out Ja'Wuan James. This is the biggest test for him. You know, probably the biggest test he's going to face all season. Can Ja'Wuan James block Mario Williams? That'll dictate whether or not he was a valuable first-round pick.
You watched the film. How did you feel James played in game one?
Okay, decent. He was a little bit better from a run-blocking standpoint than I thought he would have been. Everybody was just housing people against the Patriots.
Right.
So that was quite impressive, but I'm not a huge Rob Ninkovich fan.
Right.
So, but he did well. Now the question is, can you do better than well? Can you block the best defensive end? Arguably, 4-3 defensive end. J.J. Watts would have some objections about that. Can you arguably block the best 4-3 Cameron Wake, too. He might have some objections about that. Can you block Mario Williams? If you can, Dolphins have a bright future. If you can't, there's going to be some concerns.
Here are some more of your tweets. Kyle Paris wants to know, is this the highest point Fins fans will reach this season? Lots of tweets about, is it okay for me to be happy? Is it okay for me to be excited?
It was a blowout.
Right.
And the Dolphins gift-wrapped the victory and then took it back.
Yeah, right.
You know, 3 turnovers in the first half, that should guarantee you a loss. Dolphins corrected their mistakes. What I like about this Dolphins team is, even in the exhibition season, they're not stopping themselves.
Right.
You don't see many 3-and-outs. You don't see many drives stall on third down. They're efficient on third downs. When they get the ball, they consistently move up the field. They consistently move in scoring territory. If you can consistently do that, you have a chance to put up points. And realistically, as I said last week, the Dolphins are 6-1 when they score 25 points. Well, they scored 33 points. So you're off to a good start. If you can score 23 points is 6-1. If you can score 25 points consistently, you will be in the upper half of the league in terms of scoring. And with that defense, you should be able to feast on opponents.
Let's take one more tweet. Is it realistic that Ryan Tannehill can become more accurate as the season goes along?
Yes, it is. I mean, he is completing 56% of his passes. That's kind of... you need to get a good quarterback is around in the 60 percentile. The great quarterbacks are around the 65 percentile. Ryan Tannehill probably is the player that has to show the most improvement because some of these passes that he was putting out there against the Patriots are gonna get guys hurt.
Right.
And if you don't want to, the worst thing you want to do is put a receiver in a position where you're going to expose his body to get injured. And that's what Ryan Tannehill did all game, especially in the first half. He's got to clean it up. First game, new offense, new wrinkles into it. Hopefully he should get better. Now, he had some passes that were perfectly placed, Deion Sims, that weren't brought down and weren't delivered, but every quarterback has those.
Right.
You gotta rally past it and get past it.
And the team is going to get past it if they get 200 yards on the ground from their running backs. It makes it a lot easier
definitely.
for Ryan Tannehill's
Hell,
job.
120 is a good game.
Yeah, right.
200, that's ridiculous.
All right, it's prediction time. Omar, last week we were both wrong. I was a little bit more wrong than you were.
Hey, I'm all good when I'm wrong, especially when it's a Dolphins victory.
Sure.
Easier week for me.
All right, so we should just pick them to win every week then.
No.
No. Well, this is our chance to maybe make a little bit of amends from last year. So, do the Dolphins go to 2-0?
I'm predicting a victory this week. I think that the Dolphins have the right chemistry in terms of what they've got going on. I think you're going up to Buffalo, and it's not going to be an adverse situation from a weather standpoint. I mean, it's going to be a good weather game.
Right.
How often does that happen in Buffalo? I think they're going to. I really believe in Noshawn Moreno, and I believe that they can consistently run the ball this season. That was the missing element last year outside of creativity, which Mike Sherman lacked. So I'm predicting a 25-20 Dolphins victory.
All right. I mean, it's a huge difference. We talked about being excited when you can run the ball like that.
When you're balanced.
When you've got a very good defense and a serviceable quarterback, which Ryan Tannehill certainly is that, and you start to run the ball like that, I mean, it's good to be excited. It's reason to be excited, and you can go toe to toe with anybody.
You can play with anybody, including the Denver Broncos, if you can consistently run the ball. If you can, your team can score points and match an opponent's points total. And then if you can have the lead in the fourth quarter, pin your ears back and run the ball to finish out the game, that's the formula for winning football games. And the Dolphins, they showed that they can do that against the Patriots. Now, are the Patriots the Patriots? We'll find out this week. But the Dolphins can be a winning team this season.
Well, there aren't many games that the Dolphins are going to go into when they definitely have a quarterback advantage in it. And this is one of them. So that's why I think the Dolphins win. I think they take it 23-17. I think this Dolphins defense is going to go after E.J. Manuel, and he will struggle.
He hasn't played very well. He obviously started out pretty good against the Bears. The Bears, and 91 quarterback rating, ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown. E.J. Manuel from Florida State, he is the guy that the Dolphins have to get after and make uncomfortable, and I think they will.
That's it for our show. Thanks to everyone who's sent us your tweets and your questions. You get a chance to take an opportunity to watch the first N10 with Dolphins rookie offensive lineman Billy Turner. It's just down here somewhere that you have to click on. You get to know a little bit about the team's third-round pick. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And again, you can find X's and Omar here live at 12:15 every Wednesday and replaying on the Sun Sentinel sports pages.